Hana Kim sat in the back row of the training hall. She always chose the back row. It was safer there. Nobody noticed her. Nobody paid attention to the small human girl who barely reached the shoulders of the alien warriors around her. The training hall was massive. 40 recruits filled the space, but only 3 were human. The rest were creatures from worlds where being strong meant staying alive. There were Vrex soldiers with armor-like skin that could stop bullets. There were Tharn hunters with claws as long as kitchen knives and reflexes faster than anything on Earth. There were Kelhari warriors from high-gravity planets, their muscles dense and powerful like steel cables. And then there was Hana. She was 165 centimeters tall and weighed 55 kilograms. Next to these alien soldiers, she looked like a child. She felt like one too, sometimes. When humanity first asked to join the Coalition Military Academy, the Alien Council had laughed. Humans were too soft, too weak, too fragile, but Earth had offered advanced technology and resources in exchange. The aliens agreed, thinking humans would quit within weeks. Most did. But some, like Hana, refused to leave. The other 2 humans in her class sat in the middle rows. Daeho Park, a tall man with broad shoulders, had already been sent to the hospital twice during combat training. Minji Choi, a woman with short black hair, had cracked 3 ribs last week during an obstacle course. The course was designed for aliens twice their size and strength. Hana stayed quiet. She stayed small. She stayed invisible. That was how she survived. At the front of the hall stood Instructor Vrax Kor. He was Kelhari, standing almost 3 meters tall with muscles that looked like they were carved from stone. His skin was thick and gray, his eyes yellow and cold. From the first day of training, he had made it clear that he hated humans. Today, his voice boomed across the hall. It sounded like rocks grinding together. Today, we test pain resistance. This separates real warriors from weak prey. Hana felt her stomach tighten. She knew what was coming. The pain simulator. It was a chamber that made your nervous system think you were being hurt badly, even though no real damage happened to your body. Most alien recruits could handle 30 seconds. The facility record was 4 minutes, held by a Tharn soldier. One by one, recruits entered the chamber. The Vrex lasted 45 seconds before stumbling out, breathing hard. The Tharn managed 52 seconds. Even the smallest Kelhari recruit, still twice Hana's size, endured 38 seconds. When Daeho's turn came, he collapsed after 11 seconds. He didn't wake up. Medical staff carried him away on a stretcher. Instructor Vrax Kor watched with disgust on his face. Pathetic. Remove this weakness. Minji lasted 19 seconds. She came out shaking badly, tears running down her face. The other recruits looked away. They didn't want to see weakness. It reminded them of their own fears. Private Kim. Hana's blood ran cold. She stood up slowly. Every eye in the room watched her walk to the front. She could feel their thoughts. Another weak human. Another failure. Another quitter. Vrax Kor looked down at her with something like amusement in his yellow eyes. Let us see if you are less disappointing than the others of your kind. Hana walked into the chamber. The door sealed behind her with a heavy thud. Darkness swallowed her whole. For a moment, there was nothing. Then the pain began. It felt like her skin was being peeled off, like acid was poured into her veins, like every nerve in her body was screaming at once. Her vision went white. Her knees started to buckle. But something inside her refused to fall. Something stubborn and angry and tired of being called weak. She thought about her little brother Junho back on Earth. He was only 12 years old, and he believed she could do anything. She thought about all the people who said humans were too small, too soft, too human to be soldiers. She thought about Instructor Vrax Kor's face when Daeho collapsed. Seconds crawled by like hours. 20 seconds, 30, 40. The pain got worse, not better. It felt like drowning in fire. But Hana locked her jaw and stayed standing. At 60 seconds, an alarm chimed. A new facility record. But Hana didn't stop. She couldn't stop now. 70 seconds, 80. Her hands were shaking. Her vision was going dark around the edges. At 90 seconds, the chamber automatically shut down. The safety systems wouldn't let anyone stay longer. The door opened. Hana stumbled out. Her legs felt like water. Her head was spinning. But she was conscious. She was standing. She was still here. The training hall was completely silent. 40 recruits and 1 instructor stared at her like they had seen a ghost. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Vrax Kor's face twisted into something ugly. Something angry. The machine malfunctioned. It must have. There is no other explanation. But a massive Vrex recruit named Toruk spoke up. His voice was deep and rumbling. I watched the vitals display, Instructor. The machine worked perfectly. She felt every second of it. Hana walked back to her seat in the back row. Her legs were shaking, but she made it. She sat down carefully, trying not to show how much pain she was still in. Around her, the other recruits whispered to each other. A Tharn named Kira leaned toward her hunting partner. Did you see? The little human didn't even scream. It makes no sense. Something that fragile should not have that much will. It goes against nature. Over the following weeks, Instructor Vrax's Corps gave the humans the worst assignments, the most dangerous drills, the heaviest equipment to carry, and Hana was always his favorite target. Every time she endured, not because she was strong, but because she refused to quit. The other recruits started watching her more carefully. They noticed things. She never complained, even when carrying equipment that should have been impossible for her small frame. She helped Minji and Daiho without being asked, sharing her food when they were too tired to eat. She studied combat recordings late into the night, learning techniques her body couldn't naturally perform. Slowly, the alien recruits began to understand something. Hana wasn't trying to be the strongest. She was just trying to survive, and there was something deeply frightening about a creature that refused to accept its own extinction. One evening, Toruk sat near Hana in the mess hall. He didn't speak at first, just ate his meal. Then quietly he said something that changed everything. On my world, we have a saying. The strongest tree in the forest is not the one that never bends. It is the one that bends in the storm but never breaks. He looked at her with his compound eyes. You bend, human, but you do not break. Hana didn't know what to say. She just nodded. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't completely alone. But in the front of the mess hall, Instructor Vrax's Corps watched them with cold, yellow eyes. And his hatred grew stronger every day. Week 6 of training arrived like a storm. Instructor Vrax's Corps' hatred of humans had grown into something darker and more dangerous. Every time Hana refused to break, every time she survived what should have destroyed her, it made him angrier. It challenged everything he believed about the universe. In his world, the strong ruled and the weak died. That was the natural order. That was how things had always been. But humans violated that order just by existing. They were weak, but they wouldn't accept it. They were prey, but they fought like predators. Today's drill was live combat simulation. Each recruit would face combat drones that shot stun rounds. The rounds weren't lethal, but they hit hard enough to break bones in most species. For humans, they could be deadly. Private Kim, Vrax's Corps announced, his voice cutting through the morning silence. You will go first. The entire training hall tensed. Going first meant facing drones with fully charged batteries. By the time other recruits took their turn, the drones would be weaker. It was unfair, but nobody dared to speak up. Not yet. Hana stood without saying a word. She walked into the combat arena, her footsteps echoing in the silence. The viewing windows lit up as the other recruits and Vrax's Corps watched from the observation deck above. The arena was large and empty, with concrete walls and metal obstacles scattered around for cover. Hana took her position in the center. She heard the whirring sound of drones powering up. 3 drones activated. Their red sensor lights locked onto her immediately. 3. Not 1. 3. In the observation deck, Kira the Tharn stood up abruptly. Her sharp eyes had caught the error instantly. Instructor, the simulation parameters are wrong. 3 drones will kill her. Sit down, Vrax's Corps growled. The human wants to prove herself. Let her prove herself. But Kira didn't sit. Neither did Toruk. They stood together watching through the window as the drones opened fire. Hana moved. She didn't have the speed of a Tharn or the armor of a Vrex, but she had studied these drones for weeks. She knew their firing patterns. She knew when they reloaded. She knew their blind spots. She dodged left. A stun round exploded into the wall where she had been standing, leaving a crater in the concrete. She rolled right. 2 drones fired at the same spot, and their rounds collided in midair. She used the obstacles not for hiding but for angles, always moving, never staying in one place. For 90 seconds, she danced with death. The drones were learning her patterns, adjusting their aim. It was only a matter of time before they cornered her. Then one drone fired, and Hana was half a second too slow. The stun round caught her in the ribs. The impact lifted her off her feet and threw her into the arena wall. She hit hard and slid down to the floor. Pain exploded through her chest. She couldn't breathe. The medical sensors started screaming. 3 fractured ribs. Internal bleeding. Simulation complete, the automated voice announced. Recommend immediate medical intervention. But Vrax's core didn't shut down the simulation. He stood at the control panel, his hand hovering over the termination switch. He didn't press it. Instructor. Torik's voice was low and dangerous. End the simulation. Now. The human entered the arena. She can leave when she proves she belongs here, or when she's dead. In the arena, Hana struggled to her feet. Blood dripped from her mouth. Every breath was agony. The 3 drones reacquired their target, charging for another attack. Something snapped in the observation deck. Kira had watched Hana for 6 weeks. She had watched this small, fragile human share her food with others. She had watched her stay up late helping Minji study. She had watched her take every impossible task without complaining. And now she was watching her die because an instructor couldn't accept that weakness and will were different things. No, Kira said simply. She moved toward the control panel. Vrax's core turned, blocking her path with his massive body. You will return to your seat, recruit, or you will be. He never finished the sentence. Torik's armored fist smashed into the control panel, shattering it completely. Sparks flew. Emergency protocols engaged. The simulation chamber's doors blew open with a bang. The drones powered down immediately. Vrax's core spun on Torik, rage distorting his features. You dare. Yes, Torik said calmly. His posture was threatening despite his calm voice. I dare. You violated training protocols. You tried to murder a recruit. That pathetic creature is not a warrior. She has no right. She has more right than you, a new voice said. A Kelhari recruit named Bora stepped forward, then another recruit, then another. Within seconds, 37 recruits stood between Vrax's core and the arena entrance. They came from a dozen different species. Each one had been taught their entire lives that the strong commanded and the weak obeyed. But they had all watched Hana. They had seen something their instincts said was impossible. A creature that knew it was weak, knew it would never be physically equal to them, but fought anyway. Not for glory, not for dominance, but for the simple, stubborn belief that she deserved to exist. There was a word for creatures like that in every predator species history. Creatures that didn't fight to win but fought because surrender meant death. Pack. And every predator knows one thing above all else. You protect the pack, even from those who are supposed to lead it. Vrax's core looked at the wall of recruits blocking his path. They were young, untested soldiers. He was a decorated veteran. He could probably take down several of them before they overwhelmed him. But there were 37 of them. And their eyes held something he had never seen directed at him before. Hunting intent. For the first time in his long career, Instructor Vrax's core felt something he had never associated with these young recruits. Something he hadn't felt in decades. Fear. Station security arrived minutes later. They took Vrax's core into custody. Medics rushed Hana to the medical bay. Kira and Torik went with her, refusing to leave her side. In the medical bay, as doctors worked on Hana's broken ribs, Kira sat beside the bed. When Hana's eyes finally opened, Kira spoke softly. Your pack now. We protect our pack. Hana didn't understand all the implications of those words yet, but she understood enough. For the first time in 6 weeks, she felt safe. She wasn't alone anymore. 3 days later, the investigation ended. Station Command announced their decision. Instructor Vrax's core would receive a formal warning and be reassigned to different duties. But he would not be removed from the facility. He would not face a court-martial. The official report said he had been conducting an authorized stress test. The simulation malfunction was blamed on equipment failure, not on his actions. Torik had destroyed the control panel, so there was no proof of what Vrax's core had actually done. The recruits knew it was a lie. They had all watched. They had all seen. But the coalition military protected its decorated veterans, not its newest and weakest recruits. Hana sat in the medical bay when Kira brought her the news. Her ribs were healing fast thanks to alien medical technology, but she would still be grounded from training for another week. "He's coming back," Kira said quietly. "Tomorrow?" Hana nodded slowly. She had expected this. The galaxy ran on strength and power. Vraxcor had both. She had neither. "You should request a transfer," Kira continued, "or go to Station Command yourself." "He will try again. And say what?" Hana asked. "That a respected instructor frightens me? They already ruled in his favor. If I complain again, I become the problem recruit. They'll discharge me. Better discharged than dead." Hana shook her head. She had fought too hard to get here. She had endured too much. She wouldn't leave. Not willingly. The next morning, Vraxcor returned to Combat Training Hall 7. He stood at the front of the class, his expression professional and neutral. He gave no sign of anger or malice. He conducted the training exactly by regulation. But when his yellow eyes found Hana in the back row, something cold and dark passed between them. A silent message that said this wasn't over, that there would be a reckoning. 2 weeks passed. Vraxcor never singled out Hana. He never showed favoritism or hatred. To anyone watching, he appeared completely reformed. The perfect instructor. But the recruits knew better. They saw how he watched Hana when he thought nobody was looking. They noticed how training schedules changed, leaving her isolated at odd hours. They recognized the patience of a hunter waiting for prey to separate from the herd. The moment came during night training exercises. The facility ran training around the clock. Night shift had fewer instructors and less supervision. Vraxcor had scheduled individual survival exercises in the facility's lower levels, a maze of maintenance corridors and equipment rooms. Each recruit would navigate the maze alone, unarmed while avoiding security drones. It was a standard test of stealth and spatial awareness. Nothing unusual. Hana's turn came at 3 in the morning. She entered the maze wearing night vision goggles that turned everything green. The corridors were narrow and dark. The drone's patrol patterns were predictable. She had practiced this before. She made it halfway through when she heard something wrong. Heavy footsteps. Much heavier than a security drone. Moving with purpose. Coming toward her, Hana froze, pressing herself against the cold metal wall. Through her goggles, she saw him. Vraxcor, walking through the maze, hunting. No instructors were supposed to be in the maze during exercises. No cameras operated in the lower levels during night shifts because of power conservation. They were alone. Nobody would see what happened here. Hana turned and ran. Behind her, Vraxcor's footsteps accelerated. He wasn't hiding anymore. "You should have left when you had the chance, human." His voice echoed through the corridors. "Now we settle this properly. Prey versus predator." As nature intended, Hana ran faster. Her mind raced with her feet. She was quicker than Vraxcor in short sprints, but his endurance was legendary. He would catch her eventually. And then, she needed help. Her communication device was disabled for the exercise. The maze exits were locked until the drill ended in 40 minutes. She was trapped in the dark with a killer. Above the maze in the barracks, Kira woke suddenly. Her Tharn hunter instincts screamed that something was wrong. She checked the time. 3:15 in the morning. Hana's drill time. Kira moved silently through the dark barracks. She woke Toruk first, then Bora, then 3 others. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. They all felt it. That predatory awareness that something in their territory was being hunted, one of their pack was in danger. In the maze, Hana ducked into an equipment room. She hid behind supply crates, trying to control her breathing. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it would burst. Through the doorway, she watched Vraxcor's shadow pass. "You cannot hide forever, little prey. I admire your endurance. You have lasted longer than I expected. But this is a lesson your species needs to learn. There is a natural order. The strong hunt. The weak die. Fighting against it only prolongs the inevitable." Hana's hand found a piece of metal pipe among the supplies. It was pathetically small as a weapon. Vraxcor's skin was thick enough to deflect knives, but it was something. Better than nothing. She waited until his footsteps faded. Then she slipped back into the corridor, moving deeper into the maze. She had to survive 25 more minutes. Just 25 minutes until the exits unlocked. It felt like forever. Above, the 6 recruits reached the maintenance access door. It was sealed, locked from the inside. "We need to call security," Bora said urgently. "By the time they authorize entry, it will be too late," Kira replied, her claws extended reflexively. "If Vraxkor is down there, if he's hunting her, we have minutes." "Not hours." Torok studied the reinforced door. It was designed to withstand explosive decompression, but it wasn't designed to withstand a Vrex with purpose. "Stand back," he said simply. His first punch dented the metal. His second cracked the frame. His third sent the door flying inward with a shriek of tortured steel that echoed through the entire lower level. Alarms began screaming. Security would arrive soon. They would all face punishment for destroying facility property. None of them cared. They descended into the maze as a unit, spreading out in a search pattern. Kira took the lead, her Tharn senses tracking through the darkness. Within moments, she caught two scents: Hana's fear and something else, Vraxkor's scent, heavy with predatory anticipation, the smell of a hunter closing in on wounded prey. "This way," Kira hissed. "Move fast, he's close to her." In the maze below, Hana knew she had made a fatal mistake. She had entered a corridor that dead-ended at a locked maintenance hatch. No way forward. No side passages. Just a long corridor with death behind her. She turned to see Vraxkor blocking the only exit. His massive form filled the corridor completely. There would be no dodging past him here. "End of the line," he said. There was almost regret in his voice. "You fought well, human. Better than your kind deserves. But this is how it ends. This is how it must end." He advanced slowly. Hana raised the metal pipe. Her hands shook, but not just from fear. Beneath the terror was something else. Rage. Pure, burning anger at every creature who had ever called her weak. "You want to know why you're wrong?" she said. Her voice was steady. "Why humans terrify you even though we're smaller and weaker?" Vraxkor paused, curious. "Because we know we're prey. We've always known it. Everything on our world was bigger and stronger than us. We should have died 1,000 times. But we didn't, you know why?" She gripped the pipe tighter. "Because when you have nothing else, you learn to be mean. You learn to fight dirty. You learn that if you're going down, you take the enemy with you." Vraxkor lunged. Hana didn't try to block. She dropped low and swung the pipe at his knee joint with every ounce of strength. The impact rang through the corridor. He roared in surprise. His knee buckled slightly. Hana rolled past him, but his hand caught her ankle. She crashed to the floor. The pipe skittered away into darkness. He dragged her back, flipped her over. His hands closed around her throat. Hana clawed at his face, but his hide was too thick. Her vision started to go dark. "Prey," he hissed. "That's all you'll ever be." Then from down the corridor, a sound that made his blood freeze. The hunting cry of a Tharn pack. But he wasn't what they were hunting. He was. Kira burst into the corridor first. She moved with the liquid speed of her species, covering ground faster than human eyes could follow. She took in the scene instantly. Vraxkor crouched over Hana, his hands around her throat, the human's face turning purple. Every hunting instinct in Kira's body activated at once. There was prey here, yes. But there was also pack. And this was her pack member being killed by an outsider. She didn't think. She launched herself at Vraxkor, her claws extended. She went for his eyes. He released Hana and raised his arms to protect his face. Kira's claws raked across his forearms, drawing thick blue blood. Then Torok arrived. The corridor shook under his weight. The Vrex didn't make threats or give warnings. He simply grabbed Vraxkor by the shoulder and threw him against the wall. The impact was hard enough to crack the metal plating. Bora and 3 other recruits poured in behind them. They formed a wall between Vraxkor and Hana. The human rolled onto her side, gasping for air. Her throat was bruised and her eyes were watering, but they were fierce, angry, alive. Vraxkor rose slowly. His expression showed complete disbelief. "You defend prey? Have you all gone mad?" "She is nothing. Weak, fragile." "She is pack," Kira said flatly. "That's all that matters. Pack?" Vraxkor laughed. It was a bitter, ugly sound. "You are different species. You have nothing in common. This goes against every natural law." "Natural law says the strong survive," Torok rumbled. His voice was calm, but his posture was threatening. "She is stronger than you. Stronger than all of us, perhaps, because she knows she is weak and fights anyway. You cannot accept that your strength means nothing against that kind of will. That makes you the weak one." The sound of boots on metal echoed through the maze. Station security arrived, flooding the corridor with weapons drawn. They took in the scene quickly. A decorated instructor bleeding from multiple wounds, 6 recruits in defensive formation, 1 human barely conscious on the floor. The security chief was an old Tharn veteran. His eyes moved from Vraxkor to the recruits to Hana. His expression hardened with understanding. Instructor Vraxkor, you are under arrest for attempted murder of a coalition recruit. This time, there would be no formal warning, no reassignment. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage from emergency systems showed everything. Testimony from 6 recruits across multiple species. Medical scans of Hana's injuries, and Vraxkor's own presence in a restricted training area. The trial took 3 weeks. It became the most watched military court case in coalition history, not because of the crime but because of what it represented. A decorated veteran from a predator species had tried to kill a recruit from a prey species, and other predator species had defended the prey. The natural order was breaking down. On the final day of the trial, Hana took the witness stand. She wore her dress uniform. The bruises on her throat had faded but were still visible. The courtroom was packed with military personnel from across the coalition. The prosecutor asked her a simple question. Private Kim, do you believe you have a place in the coalition military? Hana looked directly at the judges. All of them were high-ranking officers from predator species. Yes, she said clearly. Not because I'm strong, not because I can match a Virex in armor or a Tharn in speed, but because war isn't just about strength. It's about will. It's about refusing to quit when quitting makes sense. And humans are very good at refusing to quit. She paused. Every species in this room evolved as predators. You hunt, you dominate. You win through force. That served you well. But humans, we were prey animals who climbed to the top of our food chain through spite and stubbornness. We made tools because we couldn't grow claws. We built cities because we couldn't survive alone. We reached for the stars because our planet wasn't big enough to contain how much we refused to accept our limits. The courtroom was silent. So yes, I believe I have a place here, because the coalition needs more than predators. It needs survivors. The judges deliberated for 40 minutes. They found Vraxkor guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment. More importantly, they issued a new directive that would change coalition military doctrine forever. Humans would no longer be evaluated by predator standards. New training protocols would be developed. Protocols that acknowledged strength came in many forms. 6 months later, Training Class 7 stood in formation for graduation. Of the 40 recruits who started, 38 remained. Deho had been medically discharged, but earned commendations for tactical innovation. Minji stood in the front row now, her posture straight and proud, and in the middle of the formation, not hiding in the back row, stood Hana Kim. The Academy Commandant was an ancient Tharn who had served through 4 major wars. She stood before them, her voice carrying across the parade ground. You are the first class to train under new protocols. You are also the first class where no species was judged inferior, based on physical capability. You learned to fight not as Vrex, Tharn, Kelhari, or human, but as soldiers of the coalition. She paused. Her eyes found Hana. Some of you proved that strength is not measured in muscle or claws. It is measured in the refusal to break, in standing when every instinct says to fall, in protecting your fellow soldiers not because they are strong but because they are yours. The Commandant began calling names and awarding ranks. When she reached Hana's name, she announced something unexpected. Private First Class Hana Kim, assigned to Coalition Special Operations Division, Human Integration Team. Your mission will be to train other humans in surviving environments designed for predator species. You will also teach predator species how to think like prey. She handed Hana her insignia, then added quietly so only Hana could hear. You taught us that prey can have teeth. Now teach us how to use them. After the ceremony, Hana found herself surrounded by her graduating class. Kira, Toruk, Bora, and the others who had descended into the maze that night. They had become something rare in Coalition history. A true mixed-species unit, so, Human Integration Team? Kira said. Her tail swished with amusement. Sounds boring. You'll be stuck teaching instead of seeing real combat. Actually, Toruk rumbled, I reviewed the unit roster. The Human Integration Team is the Coalition's new asymmetric warfare division. They handle missions where conventional strength is a disadvantage. He paused. His compound eyes gleamed. The division is authorized to recruit from any species. I requested a transfer. So did Kira, and Bora, and 15 others from our class. Hana stared at them. You're volunteering to give up standard combat assignments? To work in a human-led unit? The pack stays together, Kira said simply. Besides, you said it yourself. Humans think like prey, and predators who can think like both prey and predator will be unstoppable. Hana felt warmth spread through her chest. Not pride exactly, but something deeper. Belonging. For millennia, the coalition had organized itself around one principle. Strength dominated weakness. Species with superior physical capability commanded. Lesser species served. It was the natural order. But Hana Kim, all 165 centimeters and 55 kilograms of her, had proven something that would change the entire galaxy. The natural order was negotiable, and sometimes the most dangerous warrior wasn't the strongest predator in the room. Sometimes it was the one who learned to be prey first and decided to grow teeth anyway. 20 years later, Commander Hana Kim stood on the bridge of the Coalition stealth frigate Endurance. She watched the hostile planet below through the main viewport. Her crew was small, just 12 operators, but they represented 7 different species working as one unit. Kira served as her executive officer, her Tharn reflexes and tactical mind making her invaluable. Toruk commanded the ground team, his Vrek strength combined with human-style tactical thinking. Minji, who had struggled through basic training but excelled in unconventional warfare, led intelligence analysis from the ship. They had just completed their 50th mission together. 50 missions with a perfect success rate, not because they were the strongest or fastest soldiers in the coalition, but because they had learned to think differently. To fight dirty when necessary. To survive when survival seemed impossible. The Coalition High Command had created the Human Integration Team as a symbolic gesture. A way to keep humans happy while keeping them away from real combat. What they got instead was the most effective special operations unit in Coalition history. The team handled missions where conventional military strength was useless. Hostage rescues in confined spaces, infiltration of heavily defended positions, asymmetric warfare against numerically superior enemies. All the situations where being big and strong was actually a disadvantage. Hana had learned something important over 20 years. Being prey meant understanding fear intimately, understanding how to move unseen, how to strike from unexpected angles, how to turn weakness into advantage. And she had taught predators those same skills. Kira could now move through enemy territory with the patience of a human scout. Toruk could think like prey, anticipating how enemies would hunt him and turning those expectations against them. The entire unit had become something new. Predators with prey instincts. Hunters who understood how to be hunted. It made them deadly. Commander, Kira reported from the tactical station. Enemy forces are triple our strength and entrenched in fortified positions. Standard doctrine recommends we withdraw and call for reinforcements. The mission was a rescue operation. 20 coalition scientists were being held hostage by a separatist faction on the planet below. The separatists had heavy weapons, defensive fortifications, and 300 soldiers. The Endurance carried 12. By any reasonable military calculation, this mission was impossible. Hana smiled. There was something fierce in that smile, something that reminded every predator on the bridge why humans had earned their place among the stars. Good thing we don't follow standard doctrine, she said. All teams prepare for infiltration. Let's show them what happens when prey stops running. The infiltration took 6 hours. They didn't attack the fortifications head-on. That would be suicide. Instead, they moved like ghosts through the enemy's defensive perimeter. Small, quiet, invisible. Hana led a 3-person team through underground maintenance tunnels that were too small for most. Coalition soldiers, but perfect for humans and lighter species. They emerged inside the compound, bypassing all the heavy defenses designed to stop a frontal assault. Toruk's team created a diversion on the opposite side of the compound. Not a direct attack, but something that looked like one. The enemy responded exactly as predicted, moving forces to counter a threat that wasn't really there. While the enemy was distracted, Hana's team reached the hostages. 20 terrified scientists huddled in a locked room. They stared at the tiny human woman who had somehow appeared in the middle of a heavily guarded compound. Coalition Special Operations, Hana said simply. Stay quiet and follow exactly. We're leaving. Getting in had been hard. Getting out with 20 untrained civilians would be nearly impossible. Nearly. They moved in small groups using the chaos of Toruk's diversion. They used shadows, blind spots, and timing. They moved when guards weren't looking. They hid when patrols passed. They were patient. Patience was a prey skill. Predators attacked when they had advantage. Prey waited for the perfect moment, even if it took hours. It took another 4 hours to extract all 20 hostages. By the time the enemy realized what had happened, the Endurance was already breaking orbit. All hostages rescued. 0 casualties. Mission complete. In the after-action briefing, Coalition Command called it impossible. They ran the numbers 3 times, trying to understand how 12 operators had defeated 300 entrenched soldiers without firing a single shot. But Hana understood. It wasn't about numbers. It was about mindset. The enemy had prepared for a fight. They had expected coalition forces to attack with overwhelming strength. As predators always did, they never expected prey tactics from a military unit. That evening, Hana sat in the mess hall with Kira and Toruk. They ate in comfortable silence. The kind of silence that only came from 20 years of fighting together, of trusting each other with their lives. Remember training? Kira said suddenly. When you sat in the back row and tried to be invisible? Hana smiled. I remember thinking I would wash out within weeks. That I was too small, too weak, too human. You were all those things, Toruk rumbled. Then he added, but you were also stubborn and mean, and you taught us that those qualities matter more than size or strength. We learned from the best, Kira said. You taught us to think like prey. Now we hunt better than we ever did before. Hana looked around the mess hall. Her crew was small, but they were family. Pack. They came from different worlds, different species, different evolutionary paths. But they had learned to fight as one. The galaxy had changed in 20 years. Humans were no longer seen as weak prey trying to play soldier. They were seen as a species that had mastered something unique, the ability to think like prey while fighting like predators. Other species had started adopting human training methods, learning patience, learning to move small and quiet, learning that sometimes the best way to win wasn't through direct confrontation, but through clever maneuvering. The coalition military was slowly transforming, not abandoning its predator roots but adding new tools, new ways of thinking, new possibilities, all because one small human refused to quit. Later that night, Hana stood alone on the observation deck, watching stars drift past. She thought about Instructor Vrak's core. He had been wrong about so many things, but right about one. There was a natural order to the universe. The strong did survive. But strength came in many forms. Physical power was just one kind. Will was another. Intelligence was another. Stubbornness was another. And the refusal to accept extinction was perhaps the strongest survival trait of all. Humanity had spent millions of years as prey animals on a hostile world. They should have died out 1,000 times, but they didn't. They adapted. They learned. They refused to give up, and when they finally reached the stars, they brought those prey instincts with them, those survival skills. That absolute stubborn refusal to accept that they couldn't compete with bigger, stronger species. It turned out that being prey wasn't a weakness. It was a different kind of strength. And when combined with predator allies who were willing to learn, it became something unstoppable. Hana touched the commander's insignia on her uniform. She thought about the scared girl who had sat in the back row of Combat Training Hall 7, trying to be invisible. That girl had been terrified, weak, out of her depth, but she had also been stubborn, and mean, and unwilling to quit. Those qualities had carried her through 20 years of service. 50 successful missions, hundreds of lives saved, and a complete transformation of coalition military doctrine. Not bad for a weak little human who sat in the back row. The Endurance cruised through deep space, carrying its mixed-species crew toward the next impossible mission. Behind them, the galaxy continued to change. Predators learning from prey, prey teaching predators, the natural order transforming into something new and better. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that Hana had proven 20 years ago in a training facility. The most dangerous warrior wasn't always the strongest. Sometimes it was the one who knew what it meant to be weak and fought anyway. The one who understood fear intimately and refused to let it win. The one who had been prey their entire evolutionary history and decided that was no longer acceptable. Humanity's greatest strength had never been claws or armor or speed. It was the absolute stubborn refusal to accept that they couldn't win. the willingness to adapt, to learn, to survive no matter what the universe threw at them. And when prey stopped running and grew teeth instead, the entire galaxy learned to be very, very careful. The end.